Dear Dr. Becky, lately I've felt distant from God in a way I can't quite explain. I still pray, I still try to do all the right things, but it feels like He's gone silent. Or maybe I've just lost the ability to feel Him. I used to feel so connected and peaceful in my faith, but now I just feel numb. Is something wrong with me spiritually? Or could there be something deeper going on psychologically?
Thank you so much for writing in today. And thank you, everybody, for joining me today about this really important topic that I think many people can really relate to. Just as our subscriber, we can all feel disconnected at different points in our life. And that can result in feeling very alone, numb, and seeking peace. So, with that said, I really want to share a fascinating concept in psychology, and it's called attachment theory. It explains how we form emotional bonds with others starting in childhood. What's really interesting is that we develop similar attachments with divinity or God. Just like we feel close to or distance from people in our lives, our relationship with God or our higher power can feel very secure, or it can feel anxious or even avoidant, depending on our experiences. So let's break down some key psychological reasons why spiritual disconnection happens. First, there's cognitive dissonance, which is that mental tug of war. Cognitive dissonance is really what happens when our beliefs and our lived experiences just don't seem to match up. Maybe you grew up believing, if I follow God, my life will be blessed. If I do right things will work out. But then life happens, loss, suffering, unanswered prayers, and suddenly your mind is struggling to reconcile. If God is loving, why did this happen? If divinity is near, why do I feel alone? Or why have I never felt His presence? Well, this internal conflict can cause what psychologists call belief freezing, where our minds temporarily shut down spiritual engagement because it feels too overwhelming or out of reach to even process. But here's the key. Yes, there is a key. The divine is big enough for your question. Doubt doesn't mean that you don't have faith. It means you're growing it. Think about that. Doubt does not mean that you don't have faith. It simply means that you are growing your faith. So here's something else to think about. Emotional regulation and spiritual wounds. It's true. Sometimes disconnection is actually our brain's way of protecting us from pain, right? Maybe we've experienced spiritual hurt, someone in your church setting letting you down, or maybe judged you unfairly. Maybe you've prayed desperately for something and felt disappointed or abandoned, never received any kind of answers. And maybe you've even been through trauma in your setting and your nervous system is in survival mode, making it really hard to feel spiritually present. In psychology, we call this defense processing. When we feel overwhelmed or betrayed, our brains shift into a self-protection mode, and this can make it harder to be open to spiritual connection. But the good news, divinity or God is patient. He knows your heart, even in the seasons of silence. And just like healing takes time, spiritual reconnection is a gentle process, not something to be forced, but something to continue working on. Another thing that can cause us to feel disconnected is the impact of stress and overload on our spiritual connection. Our brain have what's called the default mode network. It's the part of our brain that activates when we're reflecting or praying or meditating. But when we're stressed, overwhelmed, or constantly busy, that network gets disrupted, meaning it becomes harder to feel the divine's presence. And we can struggle to focus on prayer. Faith still feels like it's a long ways away. When we're so busy focused on everything else, it becomes more like a checklist than a relationship with God. And that can result in spiritual burnout. I know I've experienced it firsthand in my life. There was a time in my life when I was pouring everything into others, helping, serving, giving, and I didn't realize that I wasn't taking the time to refill spiritually. It wasn't that God wasn't distant, It was that I was too exhausted to recognize his presence, even just keeping up with work and family and daily life. And that's when I realized we cannot pour from an empty cup. So how do we get reconnected, you might ask? Well, sometimes it's just taking some small steps. So if you feel disconnected and you want to reconnect, the answer is it's not about doing more. It's about being more intentional. One thing you can do is shift from performance to presence. Instead of seeing prayer as another task, treat it as a conversation. And definitely let go of perfection. Just pray honestly and be genuine. Even if all you say is, God, I'm here, I don't know what to say, but I want to be close again. Allow yourself then to listen. Then use your psychological anchors to reignite connection. Sometimes we need to re-engage the parts of our brain that help us feel connected. Think about when you felt closest to God or the divine. When was that? Use it. Maybe it was a worship song that once moved you. Or maybe it was nature, a quiet walk when you felt his presence. Think about maybe a moment when you had this enlightenment, or you had a peaceful reassurance, or a feeling of calm spirit. If you go back to those memories, that can help you connect. It can trigger those same feelings and emotions again. Another thing you can do is reframe disconnection as growth, right? Instead of seeing yourself as somehow a spiritual failure, recognize that you're actually deepening your faith through asking questions, through exploring. We call this, in psychology, cognitive reframing. We change how we see something, and then we change oftentimes how we talk about it, how we view about it, what we do with it. So instead of saying something like, I feel distant from God, so something must be wrong with me, you can say something like, I'm in a season of stretching, and this is part of my growth. Instead of, I don't feel God right now, try, I know God is still here, even when I don't feel him. Remember, faith isn't about never struggling. It's simply about choosing to show up, even in the struggle. Reconnection is a choice. It truly is, and we can do it one step at a time. Reconnecting with God isn't about forcing a feeling. It's about choosing to show up, even when it feels quiet. Even if you don't feel it, still pray. Even if you don't feel it, still open your scriptures. Even if you don't feel it, just sit in stillness. Because here's the truth. God has never stopped showing up for you. He's still here. He still sees you. And he's still calling you back into the relationship. So today, take one small intentional step, whatever it might be. A simple moment of silence, talking out loud, a return to something that once made you feel connected, because the peace you're longing for, it's already waiting for you. I really hope that if this message did speak to you, that you reach out and let me know. And I really want to know if you have felt disconnected or what has helped you to reconnect. So simply drop a comment or send me an email. I think we need to help support each other in this. And I would love to have you share this with others that may need to feel that connection and know they're not alone. In the meantime, your mind matters because you matter. Bye-bye.